one of the first biggest themes, weren't it? We had.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I feel like because, well, it will be because we were first together. And when we were first together, that was new and that was scary, wasn't it? And we was like, well, yeah. There's no certainty, is there, when you're first going out with somebody. You're still testing the waters. You don't know if it's going to work or not, obviously, in the first initial stages.
And I think as well, like, up until that point, I'd never really understood relationship OCD. I just thought it was, I don't know, part of, I don't know, feeling not quite, before I had the vocabulary around anxiety, I was like, oh, it's just, something doesn't feel right, I don't feel good, or maybe Fern doesn't feel good.
Or like, is it awkward? Is there something wrong between us?
And that, like, how we'd like trigger each other as well, like, it's like maybe one day you might be feeling off and I'm like, oh my God, it's for relationship OCD again. It's like, oh, now I'm triggered.
It was bad, wasn't it? I remember, we were very, very first together. It went on for a while, didn't it, as well? Like, I feel like it went on because we didn't know what it was, obviously. I feel like we spent the first, how long would you say?
I'd say. It was
a good few months. We kept, like, triggering each other over and over
I'd say
again.
it lasted longer for a few months, but I think it got to a certain point where it was like, oh, I know what this is now.
Yeah, once we knew what it was, but I don't know, like, I knew what it was and I'd read about it and I was like, oh, I get it. But then, obviously, the doubt made me be like, but are you the right person, actually? Am I picking up on something? Am I not feeling it? Do I have the ick, etc., etc.? And I remember it was, I think, Love Island, or was it Love Island or Married at First Sight?
It was Married at First Sight with that, what was she called? Morag.
Oh my God,
that was bad. I remember watching that at your old flat together in your room, like, being like, felt like I was in the trenches of OCD.
It was bad. And I remember, because you'd watch Married at First Sight, around Mike's working, by the way. I hope that somebody can let us know. Hopefully our mics are going well. But yeah, so we was watching Married at First Sight, weren't we? And I remember seeing it, and they'd analyse, obviously, the relationship and be like, oh, you know, can friendship turn into love? And how do you know if they're the one? And what does it mean to have the ick? And can you push past? It's so trigger. I mean, it's a good thing to be triggered. But.
And I think as well, even on whether it's Married at First Sight or Love Island, there's so much emphasis on, the spark. And you think, like, if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, like, you are not going to feel the spark, are you? You don't even have that for yourself, let alone for someone else.
No, you're depressed. A lot of the time you're depressed when you've got it.
Yeah.
But then I remember it was so strange because, like, some days I'd see you, what I understand now is that whole lens of threat thing. Some days I'd see you and I'd be like, oh my God, he's the most beautiful, amazing, charismatic person in the world. And then it could even be hours later, nothing had changed, and I'd be like, and you would actually look different, like, through my eyes, you would look different. It's so strange.
And I noticed that about myself as well, sometimes, depending on what I know to be, when I was anxious, I'd like look at myself a bit differently, or I felt like I'd look different, and maybe you scrutinise everything and stuff. But I always remember, what always struck me was, because we'd like maybe go to each other's houses through the week, and we'd like probably struggle with this all week, and then on Sundays we'd like go and have like the best day ever. All the time I was like, never in doubt, you know. Spent all week like, do I even love them or not? It's like, it's fine.
Because on Sunday, don't forget, we'd always get in my car and we'd go on a day out and we'd go and do something. We'd end up in like the Lake District or going all sorts of different places. Do you remember that summer? I think it was probably fueled by anxiety, but one weekend we'd be in Wales in a castle, and then the next weekend, and we was just trying to...
I think we went everywhere over like the northwest district area, didn't we? Explored every peak and cavern and
But it's interesting because when we were busy doing a date, I suppose, and not sat at home being like, but do we actually love each other? When we was actually on a date and doing stuff, naturally we fell into... harmony, I suppose. And
it's interesting that you say that about, do you remember that one? I remember feeling particularly rough, and I think that maybe set you off. Was it the first time we went to, was it Llangollen?
Oh my God.
That bridge, like the bridge or something.
Well, I decided on that day, because I think we'd only been together
not long.
a couple of months. And I remember on that day, I'd even come up with a plan. I didn't know I had relationship OCD at the time, but I'd come up with a plan like, if Andy turns up and if when I open the door, I don't fancy him, I'm calling it off. I can't do this anymore. I'm sick of being in agony, worrying about whether or not I fancy him. And then luckily for us, I remember I opened the door. You did look nice that day. And I was like, oh, okay, fair enough. So that bought us a bit of time. But thank God I did go on and learn about relationship OCD, because all of that stuff, none of it, all of that doubt, it was just fear. Like none of it was real.
Yeah. Anyway, that was 4 years ago. It's like, here we are now.
It's crazy, isn't it? Yeah. But if only we would have known then what we know now. But people don't talk about it.
No, they don't, do they? And I think I wish a lot more people would know. God, I feel like that's such a big question that is put on people and relationships. Like, ooh, are they the one? Like, we see it when we watch Love Island, like, ooh, are they the one? It's
yeah.
There's so much pressure on that. And I think that, you know, we talk a lot about the importance of attention, that soul searching and that, like, looking inside, like, are they the one? Are they the one? It's like, it's going to make you even more anxious.
I know. I mean, fortunately, you feel like you are, and that's very nice. But yeah, trying to find that certainty, you know, you feel... You can be with somebody and not be feeling great in and of yourself, but then project it onto the other person. Be like, no, they're making me feel, they're making me feel anxious, uncomfortable. And actually, it's not the other person. And I remember something, I don't know if you'll remember this, but I remember something that really helped me realise it wasn't you, was because I felt it. I was in my own therapy session, and I remember I felt it with my therapist, who I love to pieces, and I felt disconnected. And I was like, whoa, hang on, I know in my heart I've loved this person and worked with this person for about 6 years, and I feel off and I feel disconnected with her. Maybe there's a problem with me, and it's not the people around me, actually. And that was a really important, pivotal moment. Yeah,
definitely. And I think as well, like it helps, doesn't it, when you take the urgency out of making decisions as well. You know, it's like, oh, in that moment, if you would have been so quick to snap to like, oh, I'll just change my therapist. It's like, it's probably just going to follow you to the next one, isn't it?
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Because I know I had it before I met you. I had it with previous romantic relationships and friendships as well. And like I said, with my therapist, you know, relationship OCD, it is something that follows you. It's no use being like, oh, well, I'll dump that boyfriend, I'll change that therapist, you know, because it follows you until you deal with yourself. It's you that is the problem ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, just thinking about like my perspective in it as well, sometimes I think what a lot of people maybe don't talk about is the other side of relationship OCD, and like sort of just having to be with, like, obviously having my own struggles with anxiety and OCD, but then being told like, oh yeah, this, like, I'm not sure if I love you, and I feel like I'm not attracted to you. And so it's like quite a hard thing to take on the chin, but then it's also triggering as well, in that it's like, oh well, what's the point in any of this? Like, now I'm not feeling it right back at you because I'm anxious. And
that was one of my biggest fears, and it was it's so annoying. OCD. Let me put my breathing onto them and listen to them all and read them all and be like, oh no, wait, no, we are connected, we do get on. But yeah, I remember I would really do that, and that would take up so much time.
Yeah. It's time consuming, isn't it?
Yeah, exhausting.
It is.
I'm so glad that time of our lives has passed. Obviously through the hard work that we've done. It's not just done it on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you kind of have to do a lot of just... I think a lot of it just comes back to trust that you'll return to a baseline as well, and that you'll be okay.
I never, ever get this theme anymore. No. Ever. Because I think I know, like, in my gut and in my heart, I don't know. And I don't even know how I got there, to be honest. But somewhere along the lines, I learned to trust myself again and my own sense of judgment. And I think I learned to be able to feel okay with things not always being 100% perfect all of the time. Like, you can't always have those super duper happy, as much as they're nice, those super duper happy loved up days all the time. It's just not possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think one thing that's helped me as well is I feel like that takes pressure off me to always be like a certain version or a certain way, which is just not realistic. Like even like over the last week, like we've both been doing stuff, haven't we? Like on opposite sides of, like we could have been sat on this couch and on that couch over there, and it just feels like we're on opposite sides of the world, doesn't it? And it's hard, isn't it? But I think, yeah, that trust and knowing in yourself that like, this is all right, and I don't need to force it as well. That's a big one. If forcing it is a big one. Like you can't
trying to force connectedness, and the more that you force it, it's like magnets repelling, isn't it? The more that you try, the more you're going to come away. So I think if anything, if I was to go back and give the old me any advice, I think it would be that actually don't try to force connectedness. Like I don't need, in fact, I remember doing that with Rhiannon, my therapist, being like, oh, I don't need to feel connected to Andy right now. And I had to remind myself of that over and over and over again. And now I pretty much always feel connected to you because I'm not trying to force it.
Yeah, definitely. I had a point then that I was going to make. I just completely forgot it. I felt like it was a good one.
About the connectedness.
No, what I was going to say was, like, when it first started, it's just because I've got someone in mind that struggles with this, and maybe other people might find it helpful. What would you say to, because it strikes me, this person's story strikes me as similar to ours, in that what would you say that, because it sounds like when the relationship OCD came up for us, it also came about with a load of other stuff as well at the same time, and it just kind of happened to be around the same time. And sometimes you can look at it as like, oh no, that is the trigger. If I just fixed this, like this is the bad thing, and like once I get rid of this, then I wouldn't have any struggles. But really that's just chasing that feeling of certainty and reassurance, I think. Like,
do you mean like once I cure my relationship OCD, then everything will go away?
This thing is the thing that's triggered everything else, because now I'm getting all of these other things as well, but this is the thing, this is the new thing, like, in my life at the moment. Like,
when you said thing, do you mean this new relationship?
Yeah.
I felt like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, so that was like, do you remember?
Right, I get what you mean.
Do you understand? It's like, everything was like okay, but actually maybe there were other themes, but this is the thing because it's important to me. Like I know it is for this other person. And it's like, it makes everything worse as well. So it's like, it's obviously this thing that is the problem, and I should get rid of it, even though I know that they really want it.
No, but the thing is, like, I felt like that. I remember thinking, oh my God, it's only since I met Andy. It weren't true, but I was like, it's only since I've met Andy that all of these other obsessions have come up, which wasn't true. But the thing is, that's just because you and relationship OCD, that was my theme at the time. Previous to that, what was it? Visual disturbances.
Yeah.
Previous to that, it was, I can't even remember, something else. Depersonalization, probably.
Yeah,
so
that's my point. It's like, but sometimes you can look at that as like the causation rather than...
I'll be like, no, the reason I feel so bad is because I got depersonalization. No, the reason is visual snow. No, the reason is Andy. The reason is... And it's just about recognizing, do you know what, like, the shape and the context of what you obsess about and what, you know, that will always change. Right now I'm like, it's this bloody website. That's the thing. And once I fix the website, it's not like that. Like, no matter what is causing you strife, that the content of it doesn't matter, because it will always be something else.
Yeah, it's always like a game of whack-a-mole, isn't it? And this is something that I remind people, like when I work with people that do struggle with relationship OCD, it's like, okay, even if like you broke up with them and got that hit of relief like right away, you know it just jump onto something else.
You'd start worrying about, am I a paedophile, or what if I have cancer, or you know, you'd just start worrying about something else. Why do you think people with relationship anxiety have relationship anxiety? What is your sense of that?
Well, I think like any sort of theme, it's because it's important. Maybe relationships are important to them and they care, and maybe it ties into what you were saying a minute ago about not being a bad person, about hurting someone as well. I feel like that's a big one that a lot of anxiety sufferers struggle with, is like, oh, am I a good person? And then if I carry on doing this thing, I'm leading them on, then I'm a bad person. Or I think just that relationship is important. So maybe they get all... You could even get existential about it, like, well, are they the one? Is there a one for
that?
Is
I see what you mean.
But I think just like any...
Why do you think it was for you?
What What do you mean?
Why do you think relationship OCD was a theme for you?
Because it was important to me, and because I wanted to be with you, and then anything that I think threatened to derail that was something that I wanted to try and prevent, if that makes sense. Why do you think it was for you?
Because I love and I really wanted, I think for me it's like I've worked on it, but I think for me I have this thing about wanting the perfect happy life, and for me that looks like meeting somebody nice and getting married and you know, all that sort of stuff, and I think that is a goal for me in life, and I think I want it so much. And I think after seeing maybe in my family relationships where marriages haven't been perfect, I think I've been like, no, I want that. I don't want to repeat that pattern. So I think there has been an ongoing quest almost for the perfect person.
And you think as well, like you think about maybe someone that relationships, they want one and they maybe want to get married and stuff, but it's not massively important to them, but they might have obsessions in other areas as well. It's like, oh no, but my work is the most important thing. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's just about what's important to you. That's why it hooks.
Yeah. What do you think? So, if there is anybody even watching this who struggles with relationship anxiety, what advice do you think you would give them, or what would you give you then? Actually, like you a few years ago when you was in the trenches of it all.
It's not you, and it's not Fern as well. Like you don't need to get disheartened or discouraged. It's normal. I wish I could go and give old me like all of the psychoeducation around it and give them the understanding, like, oh yeah, because I think once we understood it, then you can take a bit more of an objective view and be like, oh yeah, you can create that separation, can't you? It's like, oh, I know what this is now. Yeah, it's uncomfortable and I don't like it, and maybe I don't feel connected to you, but it's not like that frantic search to like come back to each other, if that makes sense.
I've just remembered, do you remember when we discovered, I don't know if it was we discovered or you came up with, the ebb and the flow? Do you remember when we started learning about that? So yeah, like the tide, you know, feelings and connectedness, so ebb and flow, like you can feel super, super, super connected, but you can't stay there all the time feeling really loved up and in, you know, lust and all that. It has to recede, but then it will come back again. And I think once we accepted that it does that and that you can't feel 100% sparks, fireworks all of the time, then we allowed that to ebb and flow.
That came from an obsessive like deep dive on relationships on YouTube, and it was like this old couple doing a TED talk about, and they weren't even going on about relationship anxiety or relationship OCD. I think they were just talking about just general like relationships and that like
advice.
And they've been married. I think because I was just trying to make sense of it more than anything. I think a lot of people that struggle with anxiety will resonate with this. Is like, is this okay and is this normal? You know what I mean? So I was like, oh, do other couples experience this too? So I think I was just like in a bit of a YouTube deep dive on that. And it was like this couple that was like, oh yeah, you know, we've been married like 30 years or something, and we were on a road trip, and like we were doing, it was like for a family event, we were in America, and it was like a 3-hour road trip, and we were just like, not that they hated each other, but we were just like, you know, they were in the same car, but like us on the same, in the same living room, but we're just on like opposite sides of the world. And then, I think it was there, I remember hearing like them talk about like an ebb and flow of things, like, but then there's other times when, on reflection, they probably do have relationship anxiety, they maybe just don't know that they have it, because then they went on to say that, oh, when we were busy and when we got to this family event,
it went away.
When our attention is like engaged and external on something else, and we're not focused on the fact that we feel so disconnected, it's like, now we feel fine. It's like, who'd have thought?
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it came from...
It's like us on our days out when we used to do.
Yeah, definitely.
I think for me, there was also... Do you think the light's too bright, by the way? Or do you think it's okay? It feels a bit glaring.
Intense.
Could you turn it down?
I don't know if you can turn it down. I can turn it off.
It feels a bit like... Or even if we move it back a little bit. I've just looked over and I've been like, oh my gosh.
Too dark?
I think we do need it on. Maybe if we move it back a smidge. Yeah, or maybe over there. That feels a bit better. I'll just take a minute to have a look at some of the comments.
Can they hear us, by the way?
I presume.
Has that been established?
Can you hear us?
Just been going on for about...
Can you hear us? Are you able to hear everything that we're saying? That's definitely something to check. Yeah, a bit better. It's a shame there isn't... Well, if you point it to the floor a little bit, perhaps. Hopefully you can hear us, guys, after all that. Okay. Yeah, it just felt a bit glaringly bright. I think the lights.
I've not even looked at it.
What do you think? Feels a bit better now.
Yeah, it's a bit softer, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's loads better. Something as well for me I was going to say about relationship anxiety was, in the past, I don't think that I actually knew what love was, and I think this is really significant.
I remember that. I remember you saying something like that a while ago.
Well, my sense of love was very teenage and very toxic and unhealthy, and honestly what I'd seen, I hope they're not here, but from my parents, I'm pretty sure they're not on TikTok live, but what I'd seen from my parents, you know, that real kind of intense and then drop and then high, low, and that had been my experience of love up until meeting you, really. And so with that toxic relationship does come intense feelings, whether it's hatred and anger or so-called love and lust. It always feels intense one way or another, but that obviously isn't what love is. But I think that was what I thought love was, and then I had to unlearn that and then learn what it meant to be in a healthy relationship. And actually being in a healthy relationship, guys, isn't up, down. It isn't, you know, anger, love, you know, big argument. It's not that. It's real love is about respect, and it's more balanced, and it isn't big highs and big lows. Yes, we still get the highs and lows and very big highs, but it's more like that, isn't it? And to somebody who had never experienced that before, to my brain, it did feel a bit boring and a bit mundane, and I misinterpreted love as I don't know, I think I misinterpreted it as there's something missing, and actually what I was missing was that cortisol and that adrenaline and stress. I think I was addicted to my own stress hormone and thought relationships were meant to be stressful, but they're not.
Yeah, I think definitely with, like, in keeping with like the whole Valentine's Day thing, I think that can leave you chasing a certain feeling on those like hallmark moments, can't it? Like Valentine's Day or birthday or... I remember the first 2 birthdays I think of yours were, I think especially your first one, I remember that was...
I feel like I don't remember it.
Do you remember we went to tattoo?
You spent a fortune on a meal, and I was just...
Yeah, I mean, that's not really the point, but I think it was just like, it just puts so much pressure on those moments, and like there's such a force and an urge to feel a certain way, which I think just doesn't happen, does it?
No. Yeah, I remember that now that you're saying it. Yeah, like how it needs to be. We need to feel really in love and really connected because it's my birthday. And actually, there's no need for any of that. Yeah. No need. Do you remember when we moved in here, and things were getting better by that point, weren't they? And we moved in here, and I remember, because I was in therapy at the time, and I remember him saying to me, look, Fern, don't expect when you move in together to be like this hallmark moment. And I took the pressure off, and I expected my OCD to kick off and everything. And because I'd accepted that, do you remember when we had that really nice morning and we popped champagne at breakfast, and it just naturally became incredibly romantic because we weren't pushing it and we weren't forcing it.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be hard for, especially if it's never been sort of, and I'm not saying like it has been to me either, but if it's not been modelled to you, it's going to be hard to have an idea of what it should look like.
Yeah, like what does a healthy relationship look like? Yeah, because if all you've had is looking at your parents' dysfunctional marriage and then watching TV and all you see is romance and, you know, all unrealistic stuff, or your teenage years where it's just up, down, toxicity, you don't know what real love is meant to look like. Yeah,
not healthy, is it?
No, really? Absolutely not. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to be mindful of as Valentine, because it can be triggering, especially for people with relationship OCD. I think that is something to be mindful of, is that what if you are experiencing love that is high, low, that isn't love. And love is meant to feel a bit boring sometimes. And that is fine. It's okay for it to feel mundane. It's meant to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's unrealistic, isn't it, to expect yourself to... Number one, I think it's unrealistic. And two, I think it'd just be bloody exhausting to be at that level all the time and constantly, like, you can't, not with anything. You can't do that with anything. So I think it's a bit unrealistic to expect that of love, especially with someone that we live together now, we spend so much time together. It's okay if, you know, like this morning was nice, and I wouldn't say I was like up there like 10 out of 10, but yeah, just having a coffee in bed early in the morning. I think those moments are a lot nicer as well.
I think love is meant to feel like a worn out, like a little worn out teddy that you've cuddled to death and it's a bit shabby and a bit, or like a blanket that you can just, it's meant to feel like a, you know, home and a bit like, you know, not sparkles and diamonds and all this all the time. It's meant to feel comfortable and cozy, and I wish I would have known that when I was younger. I really, really, really wish I would have known that.
And it's sometimes that when you said like, oh, sparkles and diamonds, even that feels like a pressure to like maintain and show up for. Whereas like, I think, when it comes to love, it should feel more natural and easy going, I guess. And of course, like you make the effort and you make a continued commitment to one another, but also that's acknowledging and accepting that it doesn't always have to be a 10 out of 10.
100%. And I think I'm working on it, but I think as a perfectionist, I think that definitely came in massively to the relationship OCD stuff. It was like, does he look perfect? Does he act perfect? Does he, I don't know, do we go on the perfect dates? Do I feel that perfect love? Oh my God, it's exhausting, isn't it? Is the intimacy perfect? Which the more pressure you put on that, obviously that isn't going to work. And it's really hard.
Yeah, definitely. I have a question as well.
Go on.
What do you think of, and the irony isn't lost on me given the fact that we are talking about this on a TikTok live, but what do you think of like the impact of sort of social media and people's like what you were just talking about, people's perceptions of love and what it should be like? Because I feel like I'm not on social media too much, but like whenever you do go on, it's like, oh, that's a red flag, and that's like they should be doing this and they should be doing that. And I think I don't think a lot of people really I don't think we have a real understanding of what it is or what it should look like, and I think it's setting unrealistic standards for people. And I think for me, and I think we've spoken about this in the past, I feel a bit sad maybe at the thought of how many people have been in happy relationships but then have had relationship anxiety or have been told or conditioned to believe that it should be like this, and like, oh, mine's not, so this obviously isn't love. You know what I mean? How many people are making these decisions
100%
based on that?
If he doesn't do this and this for you, leave the man, go find somebody else and stuff. Again, it's all of these perfectionist ideals that it's not good. It's really, really not good. The whole red flag thing, and it puts unnecessary pressure, and it isn't realistic. And I think if you go online, if you look Reddit, for example, and if people are typing in for relationship advice, and straight away, like, dump them, leave them, like immediately, even if it's nothing, they've not done anything wrong, you know, it's something that can be worked through. I think maybe nowadays people are quick to pull the plug and be like, well, this feels uncomfortable, therefore I'm going to avoid it immediately, rather than let's see how we can, you know, as long as there's nothing unhealthy happening, let's see if we can work through this. Yeah,
and I think as well, I wonder how many or how much is it influenced by people's, when you're talking about like things like on Reddit and even videos on TikTok and Instagram, how much of it is influenced by people's own experiences, and they already have like a maybe a negative view on, say, if they see a post on relationship advice and it's like, oh, I've been through something similar, you're like, yeah, you should leave them, like it's never going to change, and like this is what's going to happen.
What group of people do you think spend time on relationship advice on Reddit? People who have been burned, people who are hurting, people who have relationship obsessions. I was always on relationship advice on Reddit, just scrolling through, because I had an obsession with love. So actually it's same with people who are in health anxiety forums, you know, or visual snow forums or whatever. The people who are in that group, it's like the blind leading the blind. Like, you know, you're all in the same boat, so to speak. So online forums, I think, definitely no. Yeah,
definitely. You have to be careful, don't you? I think try and, if you, not to villainize Reddit, because I think there's some like important.
I love Reddit.
I love it as well. But even like the lower level stuff as well, like I get it about, so like my phone, like I like technology and stuff. So I'm in a subreddit that is specifically about like the type of phone that I have. But even in there, people are like really like toxic about it. And this is kind of like a low stakes thing. Like, so you can only imagine what it's like to imagine if like my phone was my world and like maybe one day the battery died on me and they're like, oh, you should get rid of it. It's like rubbish. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it can be amplified so much, but then when you look at it through, or when it's tied to things that are really important to you, like your health, like your relationships and stuff like that, it's slippery, isn't it? You've got to be careful. You've got to be careful.
Should we take any questions, do you think?
Yeah, go on, man. I've got like another 10 minutes.
Amazing. I don't think I can read from here. Can you?
Shall I bring it forward?
Yeah, let's bring it over. Yeah, we felt like doing more of a podcasty one today and having a chat, but I'm more than happy for us to answer a couple of questions now that we've come towards the end. Should we have a little scroll up some of the questions that we can see here? Is this pre-recorded?
No, just winging it.
No, we're just chatting away. We're just chatting away. Sorry if it seemed pre-recorded, we've just ended up off on one. But we're going to have a look at the comments now as they pop up.
What if your partner doesn't like you on social media?
Oh, it's like, well, what does that mean? Are you reading into that? What does, you know, so some people might say that's a red flag, get rid of the partner. And actually I think we need to look at the partner as a whole. It's like, do they like anything on social media? Do they spend any time on social media? Are these just your expectations? You know, and there's no right or wrong answer about that ultimately, but I think it's down to the couple, isn't it? You don't go on social media. I post like quite regularly. I don't think you. In fact, you know what? I don't think you like stuff that I post on social media because you don't go on Facebook. I'm a bit older, I go on Facebook. Like, you don't really go on that, do you?
No, not really. I think that's through choice of, because I know that I'm murder for scrolling. I just try and take that out.
It's all about context. So in this context, I'm dead secure and I don't care.
And you think sometimes just on our scenario, someone might look at it and think he's not on social media. That's a red flag. That's weird. Isn't it? Like, actually, no, I kind of really struggle with like scrolling, so I'm kind of just limiting my time on it.
Yeah. So context.
I think it depends on what your situation is. Hopefully, it's not in a controlling, I don't want you on it kind of way, I guess.
Yeah, context is important there. Finn said, I've just got into a new relationship and it's really healthy, but how do I convince my anxiety? Convince it, what? Convince you that it's the right relationship, do you mean? Or convince it that it's healthy? Finn, if you're somebody who's always been in toxic relationships or less healthy relationships, your brain isn't going to be used. It's not even going to like being in a healthy relationship. My brain didn't like my healthy relationship with you at the start. And I think it's all about you. If it is healthy and if they treat you well, it's like, can I just stay in this? And I don't have to feel connected all of the time. I don't need to feel all of these things. But can I just lean into, do they treat me well? And do I, for the most part, anxiety aside, do I enjoy my time with them? Do they fulfill me?
Yeah, try not to get too caught up on convincing your anxiety, because it doesn't listen to rationality and we can't talk back to it. If anything, you have to show it rather than convincing it.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, go be anxious in your relationship and practice with that. Yes.
Yeah.
The uncertainty that presents.
Yeah, feel anxious, but go on a date anyway. Hold their hand anyway, even though you're not sure. You know, take photos together and send them to your friends, or, you know, just do stuff that you would do in a relationship anyway, despite all of that doubt coming up for you.
Be mindful of any behaviours that you do to try and convince your anxiety, and then try and cut those out as well. Like some of the things that we've said, like checking for photos, checking for messages, checking for feelings of connectedness, telling yourself, yo, it's my birthday on Saturday and we've got to go out on this date and feel connected in that moment, and if we don't, then it's obviously wrong for me because I should be, you know, happy and this and that. So just maybe work on those. Yeah,
avoidance. If you avoid, because some people might hold hands to check and be like, oh, do I feel it? But other people might be like, oh, I can't possibly go near them. And it's about figuring out what are your behaviours and cutting those out. But yeah, checking is a big one. Right? Am I checking for connectedness? Am I checking if I feel attracted? Am I holding their hand and seeing, oh, did I feel any butterflies in my stomach? Anything like that, like go with that sort of stuff.
Like, where is your attention as well whilst you're with your partner? Where is your attention whilst you're with your partner? Is it trying to be external and focused on, okay, what is happening right now? You know, maybe you're just sat on the couch watching TV or a movie. Can it try and be focused on that rather than you up here? You know, behaviourally, you might be engaging in a relationship, but that experiential avoidance of like, oh, actually, like I'm just up here going around and I'm like, oh, this isn't right. I don't know if this is the right relationship for me.
Yeah, focus on, if you're watching Breaking Bad, focus on Heisenberg. What's Heisenberg up to? Oh, and what's going to happen next with Jesse? And this, like, your attention needs to be on the activity rather than what's going on between us and how do we feel. But yeah, I hope that helps. But yeah, all right then, guys. Well, we're just about coming up towards the end of the live now, aren't we? I know we've got some clients coming up soon.
Yes.
But yeah, do you feel finished? Is there anything else you want to add?
I've covered everything.
Cool. All right then. Okay, well, thank you to everyone for coming and for listening to us talk about all things relationship anxiety. We're going to make an effort, aren't we, to do more lives in this sort of style, I think, like us having a chat.
I think it flows better.
To each other. You know, we will dip in and out and answer the odd question towards the end. But yeah. All right then. Okay, well, thank you for coming, guys, and we will look forward to seeing you for our next live.
Yes.
Oh, anxious art. No, I just got here. Go on, one question before we go. One question before we go, if you have one. I wonder what our next one could be.
Oh, yeah. What should we do?
We've got a list, haven't we?
We've got a list, yeah, but it's always nice to have inspiration, isn't it? I don't know. Is there anything else coming up, do you reckon?
I was going to say pancake day.
Eating disorders.
Eating disorders. Oh, yeah, definitely. Because that does... let's do that.
Yeah, shall we do that?
Let's do that.
Because we don't really... I noticed that the other day. I don't really do content on that.
No.
And I feel like I should because...
We've both recovered from crippling
I never do. I feel like we never mention it either. Like, we never... I know that we're trying to move away from working with it, but I feel like we never mention it at all, do we?
No, we should. Anxious Artists asked the question, do you guys deal with DPDR at all?
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. So we've got our own personal experiences of overcoming it. You know, I went through particularly more depersonalization, but I have had bits of derealization, and I feel like you maybe the opposite.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. Derealization. I think it kind of overlaps a lot with existential OCD for me more than anything. But yeah, we both have experience personally and professionally now. We
help clients with it all the time, don't we? We always help clients with that. It comes up more often than I bet I deal with it every single day.
Oh yeah, I'd say every day I see clients, I've got at least.
It's so common, guys. So like, if there's anyone here struggling with it and thinking, oh, I'm a weird one, you know, I'm going crazy, blah blah blah. Like, we deal with it all. It's so normal. I hear it as much as you'd hear someone going through a breakup or something. Like, it's so normal.
Definitely. And as well, you know what I've noticed as well recently? You know, like the two videos where you've used that filter that have got like loads of views and stuff. The amount of comments saying like, I hate this. Oh my God, it's the scariest, worst thing ever. I would say there's probably not an equal amount, but there's a good chunk of comments that say like, oh yeah, I actually don't mind this feeling. Like, it is absolutely possible to experience DPDR and not be scared by it. Yeah.
I agree, 100%. Even now, do you know what? I'll be honest, because I've been a bit stressed with the whole website thing. During the time that we've been in this live, I don't know if you felt it at all.
Not at all.
Your eyes looked a bit, and I felt a little bit of derealisation, just a tickle of it. And then I ignored it, and it just went away.
Yeah. I was feeling it the other day. Like, God, I was well stressed over the last couple of days with a lot going on. And at one point, I was like, I am not here, like, at all. Like, I am not here.
Yeah. But it comes and it goes. You just have to get better at learning to respond differently. That's sweet of you, Holly. Thank you so much. All right then. Well, we are going to leave things there for today. As much fun as we've had, we will do another one of these soon. Maybe the next topic could be eating disorders.
Yeah, given that it's pancake day. Yeah, try and keep it inky.
Pancake day. Well, it is though, isn't it?
But I used to find it well triggering. That and Easter. I used to find that was like horrendous for me. That was so bad.
There's an expectation, isn't there?
And it's everywhere.
It is. Right, we're going to end up on another tangent here. Right, okay.